What's up, guys? This is Zach, and it's time for episode 2 of Z Notes. And as promised, today we're going to be talking about my top 20 favorite albums of 2020. And just as a little disclosure before we get started, I just want to say some of the names that we're definitely not going to be hearing on this list, just so in case anybody's looking to hear me say that, say Fiona Apple had the best album, or that Taylor Swift had the best album, or Tame Impala. There's a lot of albums that came out this year that were really great, just aren't my thing. So we're not going to be talking about them. This is definitely my preference on my favorite albums for the year. In terms of genre, we're going to be looking at rap, we're going to be looking at punk, we're going to be looking at metal, we're going to be looking at rock, alternative, pop. There's a lot of different genres in there, but you're definitely going to get a taste for my style of music through everything that we got going on this list. I did my first podcast kind of video on Music to Be Murdered By Side B, which did not make my cut for top 20 albums, but M's one of my favorite artists. So I decided to do that video first. You could go check that out on my page. But for now, we're going to dive right into the top 20 albums. And at number 20, we have Marilyn Manson coming out with his, I believe, 11th studio album. It's titled We Are Chaos. And unlike a lot of his other albums, this one he did it solely with one other artist. And his artist is actually a country artist. His name is Shooter Jennings, and him and Marilyn Manson got together and they made this 10-song concept album. Came out on September 11th, 2020, and it's honestly one of the better works of the second half of Manson's career. It's got that country sound to it, but it also has the industrial sound in some of the later songs in the album. He said it's kind of a concept piece with two separate sides to it, and there's a drastic mood change in the second half. You could kind of see it when you listen to it. Now, in terms of singles for the albums, we had two: "We Are Chaos" and "Don't Chase the Dead." Um, both are slower songs. Both are definitely highlighting the new sound that you're going to be hearing in terms of Shooter Jennings being on the album with Manson. But as you listen to the album later on in it, you get honestly some of the best songs of his career, in my opinion. There's three songs in particular that I really enjoyed on this album, and they were Perfume, um, Salve Coagula, something like that. And then Keep My Head Together. Keep My Head Together is the strongest track on the album, in my opinion. But all around, it was a great showing for Manson. It's a little bit different, but it still has that same core sound to him. Um, and yeah, I think it was all around a pretty well received project too. I know he went number one in a couple countries, and it was just great to see that he's still capable of doing it. Some of his last couple albums haven't been so great, but he's also still been hitting with the singles on the album. I know Manson's been featured in the John Wick movies. Originally, it was for his single "Kill for Me" and "Killing Strangers." Actually, I think it was "Killing Strangers" first, and then "Kill for Me" might actually be in the second movie. I can't remember, but I don't know. I always think Manson and Keanu Reeves, that combo, because of that song being in that movie. So Manson's still kicking in the second part of his career. It's not the first half. He's definitely a little bit older, but it's still great to see him thriving. All right, so then for number 19, we're coming in with Joyner Lucas with ADHD. This came out early in the year. It's kind of unfortunate what happened with Joyner's album. Um, we've been getting singles for years on this thing. I think the first single came out in 2018. We saw the cover for ADHD back then, and since then he's continued to give us music. He's continued to give us singles, but all of those singles ended up being on that project. I liked a lot of the singles a lot. I had been listening to them for a while. It was great to have them all in one place, but it just kind of felt strange having this album come out that you had already heard most of before it even came out. I mean, and he jokes about it on the album. You have Kevin Hart and Chris Rock talking, making jokes on the album about Joyner and just the way that he does things, and the way that the album wasn't going to come out. But it still had solid tracks on it. The one with Logic, Isis, was one of my favorites. Obviously, I think that might have been the biggest track on the album. And then also the one with Young Thug was great. The War. That's probably the song that I went back and have listened to the most. And that was one of the new songs. That wasn't one of the ones that we ended up getting as a single that actually came out on the release date. Um, and he's worked with M, and I think that kind of trajected his career a little bit higher when Lucky You came out on Kamikaze. Obviously, we had the I'm Not a Racist video. Joyner's career was really looking like it was going up and up. And then once this album came out, it kind of seemed like it was starting to fall flat a little bit. And then he released another album this year, actually, and that one was really just not that great. I mean, it was kind of unfortunate because you'd think Joyner was sitting on all these songs for ADHD. He's probably got another fucking banger project coming out soon, and all the songs on it kind of fell flat. So that was just really unfortunate to see. I'm hoping that Joyner can come back from all this. I mean, ADHD is still making my personal top 20 albums. So, I mean, he's still doing something right. All right. So then we're going to move on to number 18, which is going to be Deftones with Ohms. Um, Deftones are one of those artists that I know how great they are. I've always been kind of in the middle with them, like just in terms of like my following. I've never been the hugest fan, but I've always kind of kept up with them. I know a decent amount about their music, but I'm not a diehard. Like I know that there's a lot of diehards out there. Now for this album in particular, some of my standout tracks where I really liked Headless. Headless, it's not. I would say it's probably the heaviest track on the album, at least from a standpoint of instrumentally, maybe not vocally. I mean, that was for me my favorite, but some of the tracks that have definitely gotten the most praise have been the title track Alms, Genesis on the album. I also really liked Pompeii. Um, Deftones are a great band. I've actually never gotten to see them live. I remember the one time that I really remember having an opportunity was when they were playing with System, and now I'm still waiting on both of them. Deftones playing this album would definitely be a great show when things start to get back to normal to get to see. Yeah, all around, it was a great effort by them. Realistically, I could even be listening to this album more. It's great. I put on Ohms a lot. I put on Genesis a lot. I don't listen through the album as much as I would like to, but definitely a great showing. Turn up for Deftones. And then we're getting to number 17, which I'm giving to the baby for Blame It on Baby, but also honestly for Long Live G, My Brother's Keeper. Honestly, that was, in my opinion, one of the greatest projects that he's put out. I mean, it was short. It was all about his brother, the emotion that you could feel on those tracks. All of them were about his brother passing away from suicide. And he really just, like, he was so insightful. He had so much to say. There's a track on there with Meek Mill titled Figures, Eight Figures. And that was my favorite track on it. You got Gucci Peacoat, you got Long Live G, Shania was a incredible song. He really did a good job with the storytelling on these tracks. I mean, it's unfortunate with the situation and everything, but it really went to show the optimism, the power, the emotion that the baby's able to put into his music, regardless of the hate that he gets as a mainstream rapper. Um, and then obviously there was Blame It on the Baby that came out this year too, which has Rockstar on it, which was probably the biggest single of the year in terms of streaming and everything. You correct me if I'm wrong on that. We might be talking about a couple later on that were also really high on that list. Um, but the baby really came through with a couple great projects. I mean, obviously there was a deluxe to this. There's a lot of songs on it that I mean are kind of skippable, but at the same time, there's a lot of really fun things that he's got going on. His personality obviously shines the same way that it always did. Songs on there for me, on Blame It on the Baby, that I thought were just absolute standout tracks, would have to be I like Sad Shit a lot. Find My Way was the first song that came out from it. I thought that song was pretty great. I mean, he even kind of got out of his normal, box that everybody puts him on that one. And then Nasty was freaking funny with Megan the Stallion and Ashanti. I mean, that's definitely one that the first time I heard it, I had to go play it back just to hear all the stuff that he said on it again. And then as far as the deluxe edition goes, we got Practice, we got Peephole, we got Blind, we got No Dribble. I mean, he really came through with a lot of hits on here. Um, and it seemed like it was pretty rushed. So that's just kind of how he could do it. Like, it could be just quick, bang, 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 and the baby's still putting out hits. That's just how I feel like it's going to keep going for him. I like to see him win. I think I like his personality a lot. I think that he's a strong rapper. He's done something different, even though everybody says, he can't switch up what he's doing. He kind of created it. Nobody sounds like him. So how can you tell him to switch something that he created? It's his. Anyway, so on to the next album, we're looking at The Weekend with After Hours. Now, when I think of this album, Obviously, most of us think of Blinding Lights. Blinding Lights is obviously one of the biggest singles of the year, if not the biggest single of the year. Play that on every radio station across all of America, not to mention the streaming numbers it's done, because it just sounds like something from the 80s. I could just see like Molly Ringwald and the Breakfast Club dancing around to this song. Like, who doesn't love that shit? Like, that's gonna sell regardless of what year it is. Now, unfortunately, I didn't put Miley on this list. Miley kind of did the same thing this year. In fact, I just heard Miley Cyrus is going to be putting out a cover album of Metallica tracks. But obviously, Miley Cyrus has decided to ride this kind of 80s like nostalgic feel too. I mean, and it really worked for her too. Now, The Weekend, it's not as much on every track as Miley Cyrus, but Miley went full on 80s for most of the album. You know, you got Joan Jett on it. But anyway, back to The Weekend. So my personal favorite tracks on this album were Snow Child. I liked that one a lot. That had that traditional weekend sound on it. It sounded like a haunted strip club, you know. That's how he's supposed to sound. And then I really liked Heartless, which was I think actually the first single for the album. I mean, you know, the I never need a bitch, I'm what a bitch need line. That shit just hits every time it comes on. So yeah, The Weeknd had a pretty good turnout for this year. He also was the first artist to do the V-Lone collab for the merch that has been popping off for the rest of the year. So, you know, basically these artists are putting out designer merch, people are buying it up and then reselling it later on. The Weeknd kind of started this at the beginning of the year with his V-Lone After Hours line. Yeah, it's a great album. I don't like it as much as Starboy. I think a lot of people might feel that way. I don't know. Starboy was just for me. Um, well put to not more well put together. I think that the feeling, the vibe of the album was just more of what I was looking for. Um, yeah, but still a great turnout from The Weekend. Obviously, everything that he puts out is great. Um, and then moving on to the next one, we are looking at Kid Cudi with Man on the Moon 3. So, Man in the Moon 1 came out in 2009. Man on the Moon 2 came out in 2010. And then 10 years later, we got Man on the Moon 3. And honestly, like I had to stick this one still on here. Like I was trying to not include too much that was at the end of the year. But I mean, it's funny. I didn't even really dig it that much on the first listen through. I was kind of like, okay, all right, that sounded kind of like a droned out version of Travis Scott, is kind of what I thought one listen through. And then, like, I realized that there were so many layers that need to be peeled back on him musically, lyrically. I mean, that's how it is with all of his music. But I mean, nobody's really been as interested to do it with, projects like, Indica and Speeding Bullet to Heaven, or Passion, Pain, and Slaying Demons. Like a lot of the albums that he's put out lately haven't necessarily been the best Cudi, except for Kids See Ghost. We know that Cudi still has it in him this whole time. I mean, we've been seeing it with the single with Travis Scott, and now with the album we get to see it in its full potential. I mean, I almost feel bad that I didn't like it on my first listen, because now whenever I listen to it, you get that absolute full potential Cudi. So some of the things that were really great on it, to me, I really liked first listen through. Elsie's Baby Boy was one of my favorite tracks. I loved the storytelling on it. The chorus was cool. Um, but going back through it now, I mean, it's hard to even miss. Like, I can't even believe the first time I listened to this album, I didn't like Tequila Shots as much as I do now. I think that the song is incredible lyrically. It follows the Man on the Moon series so well in terms of the stuff that he's talking about. I mean, and all around, it's a freaking banger. People are going to be playing it for forever. I feel like that's a classic Cuddy track. I mean, and then another one of the standout tracks that everybody was talking about was She Knows This, which has a Scott Pilgrim versus the World little soundbite in the beginning where it's like, Scott, don't give them the satisfaction. And it's like, nah, what if I want the satisfaction? And the song comes in after that. I thought that that was pretty cool. I like that he was able to use that sample. Obviously, it's not the first time he's made a reference to that movie in the trilogy. Um, and other standout tracks on it, honestly, I thought that the Trippy Red feature wasn't bad. I mean, I've been kind of off of Trippy Red since like 2018. When he came out, he was doing some good stuff, but his albums have always been kind of disappointing to me. But this feature was really good. He definitely shined on this album. Um, yeah, all around, Man on the Moon. It came out recently. We got it in December. I mean, and it's still making the top 20 albums. Obviously, you got a Pop Smoke feature on this album. He's coming up. And it's just it was great to see the way that this was put together. It was great that Kid Cudi was able to make the Man on the Moon trilogy three great albums. And he says that there's more coming. That should be exciting. So maybe he'll even be hitting the 2021 list at some point in time. All right, so we're now at the next one on the list. We are at number 14 with Ariana Grande, Positions. Now I remember waking up the morning that this album came out at like 6 o'clock, and I was all pissed off, and I got in my car and I was ready to drive to work in a bad mood. I threw on Ariana Grande, and the second this thing started, there was no way I was going to be pissed off for the rest of the day. This album was sheer ear sex. Like, I don't even know what else you could say to it. Just the way that she sounds, her delivery, the things that she says. I mean, it's hard not to like Ariana Grande. I mean, I always got love for her for the Mac Miller thing. I mean, I was a big fan of their relationship. I followed that pretty heavily. I think that Thank You Next was probably her best album up until this one. And she's been able to keep that train going. Her music before that wasn't too exciting to me, especially not on an album level. But now it seems like Ariana Grande's figured out the strategy for putting together a successful album where all the tracks are hitting. She had a weekend feature on this album. That was definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. The single Positions obviously great. The video for it was great. Now, of course, we got to talk about 34 plus 35, where she just says she wants 69 with you. That's the song where I was in the car and I was like, this can't be a bad day. This is in my ear right now. Just can't be. And yeah, I mean, that's been one of the songs that's popping off. It's funny, she finds a way to be as sexual as possible and discreet as possible at the same time and get that shit to just slap. And yeah, Ariana Grande coming through once again with the great album. She's got her live concert on Netflix right now. I know that she's been doing big things in terms of, obviously getting people to vote last year. I mean, Ariana, I mean, people give her a hard time. I think she's all around killing it. I think that this was a great album. Obviously, it's killing it on the charts. I think it's still number one right now. And yeah, it's always great to see what she could come up with. She's got the Doja Cat feature on here. A lot of the songs really kind of followed being about relationships. That was generally the theme over the album, and then just being a friggin' boss like she always is. All right, so moving on to number 13, we got The Ghost Inside with Aftermath. Now, this is their comeback album. It's their first album in 6 years, and that's a huge deal. They're a hardcore band. If you don't know who they are, um, I've always been a big fan. I've saw them probably about 5 times before the accident happened. In fact, I saw them on their last tour for Dear Youth. At least it might have been the last tour. I saw them on the Violent Gentleman tour. I think it was 2014 with Every Time I Die. And so basically, what happened with the Ghost Inside is their tour bus ended up crashing. Their bus driver was killed. They were all in the accident. They were all terribly hurt in the accident. There was just a terrible situation for everybody in the band. And they just hadn't been able to put out music. They kept saying that they were going to do it. They kept saying, and it just wasn't time yet. They weren't strong enough. It wasn't time for them. And that's what their music's all about. It's all about prevailing. It's all about conquering your fears. So, like, you knew that once they finally came out with that album, it was going to friggin' slap. And I haven't even seen this on anybody's list. Like, this is a big deal. They're back. That was a huge accident. That could have ended this band for good. And the lyrics, everything that they have to say on it, they're coming at it just as hard as they ever were. And they definitely have all the insightful things to say about, having seen a near death experience, living through it, and just being able to strive from there. Now, looking at the track list, my personal favorite track was Pressure Point. And honestly, I love the intro. The intro is just like they're going in, they're telling you that they're back. You got Phoenix Rise. That was a great track on the album. Yeah, I mean, even if you like rap music, there's a reason why I like all of these different things together. There's something connecting them all. And, whether you're here for listening to the hardcore stuff or the rap stuff, check out the other stuff because there's definitely something in there that's the same. Now, between The Ghost Inside and Ariana Grande, maybe not. Maybe. I mean, maybe lyrically, who knows? I'm all about the lyrics. I'm all about the words. I'm all about the raw energy in the music. And I think that all of these bring that. So anyway, moving on from The Ghost Inside, we are now at number 12 with Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats putting out Unlocked. Unlocked is a short album. Unlocked is a fucking fire album. It's just Denzel Curry going on some of the best beats. It's to the point. The choruses are on. He's hitting every track. There's not even really too much more to say about this than it's just real short and sweet. Every track is killing it. I don't even think that this is something that Denzel is going to consider as one of his studio albums or anything like that. Diet is my personal favorite song on it, but you also got Take It Back to Level 2. Like even the project, when you look at the track titles, it looks like something that leaked. It looks like something that, you know, you found online. Like there's one track that's just called track '07. You got Cosmic Point MP4. So it looks like an MP4 file for the track title. Yeah, so I mean, if you've never checked out Denzel Curry, which would be really hard for you to not do that, last year he put out another short banger called Zoo. I mean, and then Taboo in 2018 was just incredible. If you haven't listened to him yet, you got to get on with Denzel Curry. But I'm sure you have. You got to have. All right, so now we're moving on to the first of three albums to come out by artists that passed away. So at number 11, we have Juice World with Legends Never Die. Now, of the three, I think that this one sounded the most, well, I mean, really, really did, which was unfortunate. It sounded the most put together after someone died. I mean, they're saying that we have another Juice World album on the way that is, I think it's called The Outsiders or something along those lines. We might even have already gotten a track. I don't know if Real Shit's gonna be on that, the Benny Blanco track that came out, which is awesome. But Juice World put out so much music. Like we definitely could have gotten something that sounded a little bit more complete than throw. I mean, it was the point, I guess, with the album title and stuff. But I don't know. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit different for the first album to come out after he passed away. Something a little bit more complete. But the tracks on here are great. I mean, it just sounds like it was put together after he died. That's, you know, if you don't mind that, it's all good. My personal favorite track on the album is Blood on My Jeans. I really like the part where he's like, when you feel my dick, there's a gun. Not right there, just a little above. I don't know. He says some dumb shit on that song. He says, I mean, you know how he is. He's just a natural. We saw how great he was at freestyling. We saw how great he was at the art of rapping and just making hits. Like the genuine talent in Juice World was, I mean, we've had a lot of great artists die, but, you know, Juice World would have been putting out the number ones because like look at it, all of his albums are number one right now. He passed away over a year ago and all three of his albums, including this one, are all on the charts still, and they're going to continue to be, especially when more stuff comes out. Yeah, I mean, obviously, as far as like standout tracks, a lot of them still, even though the album doesn't sound that complete, even though it seems like something that came out after he passed away, almost every song on Legends Never Die is a hit. So just looking through the track list. So obviously, Conversations, Titanic, Bad Energy, Righteous, Blood on My Jeans, which I just talked about. Then we got Smile with The Weekend. We got Tell Me You Love Me with Trippie Redd. Tell me which one of these songs isn't a hit. Like every one of these is a great song. I think once you get a little bit lower, some of the tracks aren't as great. Stay High, Can't Die, Man of the Year. I mean, the last track being called Juice World Speaks from Heaven was really, really when I talk about what seemed like it came out after he died. That was the part that killed it for me. I can't believe they titled the last track that. I don't know, just a little tacky to me personally. Anyway, Juice World killed it. Was a incredible album. I mean, and we're gonna still see plenty of music pouring in. Like he said on he said it on the Real Shit song that came out recently with Benny Blanco. He's like, the song isn't gonna be out for a while. So I mean, he's got them stockpiled. We're gonna be having them still coming for a while, and I'm perfectly okay with that because the song sounds finished. The album was what didn't sound finished. The songs all sound finished. Anyway, so at number 10, so we made it to our top 10. We're talking about Detroit 2, Big Sean. Big Sean is one of the best rappers that nobody considers one of the best rappers. And it's just gonna keep being like that. For me, Dark Skies Paradise is probably one of my favorite rap albums. Probably top 20, not top 10, but I mean, I don't know. There's just something about Big Sean. He's good at the art of rapping, and he's got the swagger about him. He's pretty fucking untouchable in terms of the lyrics and just the stuff that he comes up with. I mean, obviously there's a few names, but he's really got it going on. Now, Detroit 1 obviously was a mixtape. Detroit 2 is an album because he felt like Detroit 1 should have been an album. So now obviously he's not going to get it wrong this time. In terms of the track list and what songs, why would I stop? As soon as it starts, this album has a banger. This is a great song to wake up and listen to if, you're trying to figure out how to get yourself motivated for the day. Throw on this album, throw on the first song. Why would I stop? And you go right into Lucky Me, another great song. We got Deep Reverence after that with Nipsey Hussle. I mean, it was awesome that he was able to get that track to happen. It's a great track. They sounded like Nashville's on it together. Got Wolves with Post Malone after that. Tell me Big Sean didn't snap on this album. This track list is insane. Wolves, like, you hear that song and it's like, oh, Post isn't in the beginning song. You're like, yeah, Post is gonna sound great on this song. Then he's got Dave Chappelle talking on it. Harder Than My Demons is a great song. Zen the Fuck Out is my favorite one. He's got a lot of songs where he's talking about the stuff that he always does, where he's able to really get in and talk about relationships, mindsets, anxiety, depression, the stuff that Sean's able to talk about and still sounds so fucking cool. So anyway, as far as that goes, you got Guard Your Heart. He's kind of doing that deal on Everything That's Missing. I mean, and you get further into this album, we haven't even talked about the fact that there's still Wayne and Eminem features on this album at the end. You got Don Life with Lil Wayne, not one of the strongest tracks on the album, but it's awesome that he got that feature. And then at the end, you got the Friday Night Cypher with all of the Detroit rappers all just going at it. It's a 9-minute track. Eminem's in for like the last 3 minutes. Yeah, all around, Big Sean always comes through with the albums. I think that people should be paying more attention to this. I'm disappointed that I haven't seen this on more people's lists as one of the best rap albums of the year. And for number 9, we're looking at Halsey with Manic. This album actually came out on the same day as Music to Be Murdered by Eminem, and another album that has yet to come out on this list has yet to be revealed. And it was not something that I paid attention to at first. Obviously, Without Me was a song that was a huge radio hit. That song was on this album. Shit, on the album, you even have John Mayer boasting about what a great song is and telling her that it's her number one, like that it's her best song and it's the number one song on the radio right now. Like, and that she should be super excited about that all happening. I really like Halsey's personality, and I think that that's one of the things that has kept me so interested in her music. She seems like a bad bitch, just like, but at the same time, like, you could tell all of the different ways that she gets wrapped up in her head. She's human. I mean, and she makes bad decisions, good decisions, does all the same stuff like the rest of us. And as far as the track list goes, my favorite tracks are Clementine's definitely one of them. It's the second track on the album. It's got the Eternal Sunshine for a Spotless Mind reference. That's one of my favorite movies. She says the clip is of Clementine from the movie. She's one of the characters going, "Men look at me as a concept, but I'm not here to save them. I'm just a fucked up girl," something along those lines. And it just works so well with the song. It's one of the slower songs on the album. There's a lot of slow, sad songs on this album. There's a lot of real stuff that she talks about on this album. And it's one of those things where, I mean, it's definitely not for when you're turning up, but when you're sitting there and you want to think about some stuff, Halsey's got a lot of good stuff to say. And that's one of the things that I really like about her. Um, Graveyard's obviously a great track. You Should Be Sad. I wish I never ever I should have never ever had a baby with you. I'm glad I never ever had a baby with you. Yeah, that song's really good. Um, I Hate Everyone. Awesome. She's got the Dominic Fike interlude. He's a good up and coming artist. We got 3 a.m. Why is every time an artist puts out a song called 3 a.m. it's just great? It's just like a rule. If you put out a song called 3 a.m., it's gonna be a banger. Um, Killing Boys has the Jennifer's Body reference in it. That was awesome. She definitely's got good taste in movies, that's for sure. We got um honestly, one of the best songs on here is the last track. Well, at least I think it was the last track originally, and that was 929, which was she says the time that she was born, but then she kind of goes into like this little poem about talking about like I don't know, herself and the way that she feels about herself and self-reflection. And it's just a great track. It's a great summary for the album. Um, I wish I could talk about a lot of these albums for more because there's just so much you could get into with every track on them. And at number 8, we have Heartwork by The Used. They are one of my favorite bands. They've been one of my favorite bands since middle school, and it's great to still see them putting out great music and thriving. If you're a fan of My Chemical Romance and you've never heard of The Used, you got to check out The Used. They have essentially the same sound, and if you like Gerard Way, you're gonna love Burt McCracken. I don't know how they didn't get just as big. But anyway, the album I believe was produced by Mark Hoppus. It's got 16 tracks on it. It's longer for one of the Used albums. They actually have one song on here called Lighthouse, which when they did the video, they asked for essential workers to send in little videos of themselves and they would put them in the music video. And I'm actually in the music video. So check that out. I'm pretty stoked about that. My favorite band got to be in the music video. And then also, one of my favorite tracks on this, it's called Wow, I Hate This Song. And it's literally about hating music. It's about the songs that come on the radio that you hate, but you love. And like, there's just something funny about it. It's very tongue in cheek. This single, Paradise Lost, is down to the T, the essential Used sound. They get the sound that they always have. They put out a great single that's super catchy. Um, and the track list is pretty solid straight through. There's not really any song on here that I skip when I listen to it. Um, they have Blow Me with Jason Butler on here, who is the lead singer of, well, he was the lead singer of Let Live. Now he's the lead singer of Fever 333, and he's screaming. It's all heavy on that track. It was great to see the Used put out something that heavy. It's been a while. Cathedral Bell was one of the hits on it. I really like the song Clean Cut Heels on this album. It might even be my favorite track. It's kind of a dancey song. The lyrics are real sad, but the music's real upbeat. To me, that's exactly what the Used are. They got a song called Lottery on here with Caleb from Beartooth, and that's one of the heaviest songs on the album. If you're into the heavy stuff and you like a good chorus, this is a phenomenal combination. Yeah, all around the Used are still killing it in 2020. Their first album came out in 2002, and like I said, if you haven't heard of them, they're an essential checkout. All right, and at number 7, we have Pop Smoke. And I probably found out about him around the same time that a lot of people did with the Jack Boys album, and then also with Dior and Welcome to the Party. And now we have his first album, and it came out after he died, unfortunately. And we had 50 Cent, I believe, executive produced this album. And you could see why. It sounds like him. You could tell that Pop Smoke had so much influence from 50 Cent, especially from the tracks that he has on the album where he literally references 50 Cent. Like Got It On Me. I mean, obviously he's taken from Many Men, the same way that 21 Savage actually did this year too, putting out a song called Many Men. So 50's been getting that love this year. I mean, Pop Smoke is unique. He's kind of tougher than a lot of the rap that's coming out now. I mean, it's kind of got that mosh pit sound to it. It's got that DMX vibe. It's got something like that. And at the same time, you switch to the next track and you're listening to him basically serenade some girls talking about nothing on the covers. Mood Swings, obviously, great track. Um, the entire album is hitting the entire way through, and then he put out a deluxe. I mean, they put out a deluxe edition, and those tracks are great too. Obviously, there were a lot of great features on here. The song Snitches, I can't believe that song didn't exist already. There is the song with Sway Lee Creatures is really great. 40 what's it 44 Bulldogs a great song. Yeah, yeah. Um Honestly, the whole album. He's got a song on there with the baby and Lil Baby, and both of them are giving great verses. I mean, unfortunately, I like I said earlier with Juice World, the baby references the fact that Pop Smoke's already dead on it, and it kind of takes away because I know that the verse wasn't originally supposed to be on there. Um, but a great turnout for his album. I mean, people are going to be talking about Pop Smoke for a long time. All of these songs are really hitting. People are listening to it. I mean, and it's just a shame that we didn't get more of them because obviously it could have changed the vibe of rap again. I mean, this is some heavy stuff in terms of the lyrics. Just like, I mean, it's not mumble rap, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer that we're not going to get to see the potential that Pop Smoke had. And then at number 6, we got Machine Gun Kelly with Tickets to My Downfall. Now, obviously, over the last couple of years, he had that little dispute with Eminem, and it's really great what came of it. I mean, he said that people weren't paying attention to his album Hotel Diablo after it happened. Nobody was really giving him the attention that he deserved. So he said, "Screw it, I'm going to put out a pop punk album." And believe it or not, he was able to do it better than a lot of the pop punk bands have been lately. I mean, just the natural feeling to the album, just that carefree. I mean, MGK almost like he embodies that punk vibe anyway. So it was just perfect to see this coming from him. I mean, not even just to talk about the hits on it. Forget Me Too, My Bloody Valentine, My Ex's Best Friend, Concert for Aliens, like a lot of the singles that came out for it. This album also had bonus like a lot of the other ones have this year. And all of those tracks were great. In my opinion, those were some of the standout tracks. It actually had Body Bags with Youngblood and Burt McCracken from the Used, who we talked about earlier. And it was just great to see them get the attention that MGK had called out to them and wanted to do this with them. You could tell that he really wanted it to have that authentic feeling. Obviously, he also worked with Travis Barker on this album, so it's no bullshit. They're working with Blink 182. They know the sound that this has got to have, and he was really able to do it well. It's not something that's going to be winning awards for best album, but it's something that I feel like people are really going to enjoy in that lack of punk rock that we're getting. And I think that it's going to be really awesome for shows. I think that MGK is going to be thriving in the concert world when we come out of this because of this album and just the intensity, the energy it's going to bring. All around, like I listened to this probably for a month straight every day. I really enjoyed this album. And then at number 5, we got Lil Baby with My Turn. I think that a lot of people are going to call this rap album of the year, and rightfully so. I remember when Lil Baby first came out, um, I was working as a line cook, and there was like a 16-year-old kid. He was one of the red shirts, one of the people that would do the to-go orders and stuff. And I remember we were talking about rap music, and somehow I was like, what's your favorite rapper? And he told me it was Lil Baby, and I looked at him and I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Lil Baby is your favorite rapper. And at that point in time, like all I knew was Yes Indeed, and that's Drake putting somebody on. Like obviously Drake put on Black Boy JB, and that's not gonna be anything. So, who knows whether or not at that point in time it was gonna be anything great. Yeah. He has something to prove, and he's pretty great. Lil Baby, honestly, is just got this sound to him that it's hard to even mimic. Like it's hard to even rap along with because you just can't sound like Lil Baby. Um, and it honestly had my favorite song of the year on it, Emotionally Scarred. Like love letter came through the mail, said I miss you. I ripped it up and flushed with a tissue. Like the lyrics on that song, it sounded like something that Tupac came up with or something. And I mean, it's tough to really say that many of the rappers are capable of doing anything like that now. From the first track, Get Ugly, this thing starts out crazy. I mean, it goes into Heating Up with Gunna, which originally I wasn't really a fan of Gunna. I didn't really get this combo, but it's definitely grown on me over the years. Now, I mean, it's like the third year of them doing this together. Whoa is obviously one of the standouts. That was one of the singles for the album. Um, like I said, Emotionally Scarred is my favorite track probably of the year. Something to Prove, We Should with Young Thug. Like And then obviously we paid somehow this bonus track that honestly I think was probably gonna be like I think that was a throwaway. Like I think that was a B side. I don't know whether or not that was something they made later. But I mean, obviously there's just something about that simple chorus that just hits. And 42 Doug coming through on the track. I mean, he's I didn't really hear of him before this, but I've definitely been hearing his name since it. And then at number 4, we got Code Orange with Underneath represent. Now, Code Orange put out this album right when coronavirus hit, and they were supposed to play their record release show. And basically, what they decided to do was they played that shit to an empty venue, and they had the coolest animations going on the whole time that they did. This show is insane. I think it was March 13th through March 16th, sometime during that weekend that they did this, and the broadcast was just insane. They played this new album Underneath, and it was just like it was like the pandemic had been going on for forever and they already knew exactly how to deal with it. And the album itself is Code Orange. If you know who they are, if you know what they sound like, it sounds like Code Orange, but there's a whole lot more going on too. So Code Orange never had an official lead singer. I mean, there was the drummer sings, the guitarist sings, like everybody in the band was singing. And basically what they decided to do was now they have the drummer as the lead singer, they have a new drummer, and you got vocals still coming from everywhere. Everybody's contributing to the track all over the place. This album does some of the craziest little switch noises you've ever heard in your life. There's times when the track will completely stop, restart itself, stutter. There's all kinds of stuff that you've never heard done before. I mean, I wouldn't say that they were able to get a mainstream sound, but they definitely have some songs on here that if you showed your dad who's a metal fan, they'd probably be able to vibe with it. I mean, and most of those songs probably be the ones that Reba sings on, but I mean, mainly they'd be probably Sulfur Surrounding. And then the tracks on this album, they're all unique. They all got crazy stuff going on. I mean, if you've never checked out Code Orange, it's hard to even describe it, especially not as somebody that doesn't play a whole bunch of instruments to be able to tell you what's going on. Top tracks on here: In Fear, Who Am I, um, A Sliver, Underneath. This band actually worked a lot with WWE doing like soundtrack stuff, so you could tell that they got some heavy hitting stuff going on. And at number 3, we actually have an album that came out the same day as number 4. And this is the album that I think of whenever I think of this year and coronavirus and music. And that is Lil Uzi Vert with Eternal Take. We waited so long for this album to come out. It's all about aliens, it's all about that kind of theme. And it comes out, all the stuff's going on. And I mean, it was really just a great soundtrack. I mean, it's party music. I mean, we still haven't really gotten a party to it yet. I mean, at least on a concert level. But I mean, Lil Uzi Vert was definitely able to put out some high spirited music this year. I mean, and the album starts out great. Baby Pluto, Low Main, Silly Watch. There's not a single song on here that doesn't make you just want to get up and dance. I mean, obviously he came through with the EXO Tour Life Part 2 with P2, and that was something that people went crazy for. Again, this ended up being the biggest track on the album. 2020 was obviously a huge year with Uzi. If you look at it, he kind of had 3 albums. In fact, yeah, he did have 3 albums. When you take Eternal Take, Love versus the World 2, and also his double out, and also his album with Future. I mean, it was a killer year for him. He obviously had at least 20 huge hits come out between those 3 albums. I mean, and I enjoyed listening to all of it. I mean, we even got a double album with the side B or whatever you want to call it, deluxe for the Future album. So it's kind of like 4 albums. Yeah, Uzi killing it in 2020. And at number 2, we have Jessie Reyez with Before Love Came to Kill Us. This is actually her debut album. I had to put it at number 2 because it's incredible. And I don't know why people haven't been giving her more attention. As I said in my first podcast, I found her through Eminem. She put Eminem on this album, and honestly, it's the worst track. She didn't even need to. She didn't need that attention for this to be a good project. Now, if you haven't heard of her before, you got to check this out. This album actually came out 3 times this year. Just reordering the track list, just figuring out how she wanted it to be. And ultimately, I think the third way that it came out was the best way. So it started out with a new track called No One's in the Room. No One's in the Room kind of goes over that idea of who are you when nobody's looking. It talks about, priests and all those people that judge you, but then who are they when there's nobody looking? But besides from that, the album really focuses on love a lot as the major overarching theme. There's a lot of songs where she's got those songs where she's able to kind of turn up and be a bad bitch, like Roof and Ankles. And then you got songs that are just the straight up the love songs like Intruders, Before Love Came to Kill Us, Worth Saving. I mean, honestly, every song on this album is so great. I think that anyone who's a fan of Rihanna should be checking this out already. All these people that are giving all these female pop stars all the attention, like they don't even know what they're missing with Jessie Reyez at this point. And I can't wait to see what she does next. Hopefully, she could get working with some big artists. She's got a feature with Black on this album with Imported. That song's been out for forever. It's a great song. Subject matter is awesome. If you haven't heard that, you got to check that one out. That's probably I would say probably if any of them got radio attention, it would be that one. Um, but yeah, Jessie Reyez killed it with this album. She actually ended up putting out a song later on the year, or at least was on a remix called Fuck 2020, where she talked about how nobody liked her album. And that's bullshit. Um, anyway, getting to number one. And I'm sure at this point in time, if you haven't noticed, it's not on here yet. You know what it is. Mac Miller, Circles. Now, the reason I had to put this at number one is that it's probably the only album on this list that I know for a fact that I'll still be listening to in 10 years. Um, Mac Miller put out an album that to me like sounded like Mac Miller does the Beatles. Mac actually it's a finished album that basically he was ready to put out with Swimming that came out in 2018. I've heard a lot of people say that they think that Mac Miller's kind of gotten bad as he's gotten older. Mac Miller got better with every album in my opinion. And this was like the ultimate piece where he didn't even need to be a rapper anymore. He was able to put together these songs that were just composed that well. This came out on the same day as Eminem's Music to Be Murdered By. It also came out on the same day as Halsey's Manic. I didn't listen to this album until later on that day, and it was like a freaking blanket of wisdom, of good music, of just everything that I needed that day. And I mean, this was that album. It came out early. It came out in January. Like everywhere I went all year, I have memories of playing this album, good or bad. Like circles came through in every situation. I mean, and how could you not love how funky it gets on Blue World? My God, first time you heard that song, you just want to stand up and dance, even though the first two songs were sad. My personal favorite song on the album is Hand Me Downs, though. There's just something about it. The lyrics. I actually was on a cruise this year, and I think to looking out at the water, listening to that song. So, I mean, for me, that's gonna be the album of the year. I know it might not be everybody's album of the year. A lot of people put out awesome stuff this year. If I missed stuff, if you think I need to check stuff out, let me know. And let's have a conversation. Let me know what you think was great, what we need to check out in 2021. Probably going to do some album reviews once we start getting into some good stuff. Some stuff that I really wanted to be on this list that's not here, obviously, because it didn't come out. Where Drake with Certified Lover Boy, maybe it'd be here. I think it might be. I like the title. I know it's a little corny. And J. Cole very well could have taken that number one spot with those two singles that he put out this year. I cannot wait to see what he has in store this year. I mean, along with plenty of other great artists, I'm really excited to see what A Day to Remember's album sounds like, even though every single we've gotten from an album that was supposed to come out years ago have sucked. So it should be really interesting to see what their album sounds like when it finally comes out. Lots of stuff to be excited about this year, 2021. First weekend, we already got some interesting stuff going on, but we're here for the ride. Definitely going to be some good music at the least. Thanks for watching. This is Zeno.